Hi everyone, Big Mike here. It's time for another tutorial. Today we're going to be taking on L5.
Welcome Legion, D20 Live is back with another tutorial. My name is Devin, co-GM at D20 Live, and I'm in the driver's seat today. We're taking a look at one of my favorite all-time role-playing games, which is why it's my turn to do it, and I tackled Mike earlier. Legend of the Five Rings, 4th edition. We're going to show you how to tell stories and run adventures in the Empire of Rokugan, the setting for Legend of the Five Rings, known from here on out as L5R because acronyms and it's easier. L5R is a game that draws heavily on the fictional tales and mythologies of our real world's Japanese, Korean, and Chinese cultures. Many of the mechanics draw heavily on the themes of the game, and as a result, it's a very theme-first game rather than mechanics-heavy game. And you'll see those themes repeated a lot throughout the mechanics. There's a lot of fives as you'll get a hint. Hence, Legend of the Five Rings. If you want to know more about the setting itself, have a look at our video here. No, Mike's probably not going to do that for me. He's going to embarrass me right now. So go look in the description below for our link there, because, Mike will likes embarrassing me for my first time out. Anyway, let's get stuck in. So while there are a number of mechanics in this game that make it very flavorful, there are two what I like to call unique mechanics. The first of them are the five rings and their associated traits, and the second is the roll and keep dice system. So we'll go into them first. The world of Rokugan. It is believed by its people that all individuals, places, and indeed actions are derived from the five elements: earth, air, fire, water, and the void that connects the spaces between them. Hence the name Five Rings, as I said earlier. So each of these rings is an approach rather than a set stat, a way of going about a particular action. And the character of those actions are associated with each of the rings. Fire, for instance, is direct and creative, but also aggressive, whereas air is whimsical, enigmatic, and mercurial. This is why each ring has two associated traits that go with them. One of them representing the physical nature of that element and the character, and the other one representing the mental. They are as follows. The ring of air controls your reflexes and the awareness of other people's feelings and emotions of those around you. The ring of water is a ring of rapid change and alteration, and as a result controls your strength and your perception. The ring of earth is eternal and constant, and as a result controls your stamina and your willpower. Fire is your agility and your intelligence, which also includes creativity and inspiration. Void is distinct, as you'll see is, again, a theme for most of the system, where void is just different. Void, being the combination of and absence of all of the other rings, actually doesn't have any traits that it governs, and instead it's going to provide you with a pool of points that can give you bonuses to all the other rings, which we'll go into later. These traits, when you're trying to achieve something in-game, are going to be paired with skills, and together they're going to make a pool of dice that you're going to use in the roll and keep system, which we're going to go into. L5R encourages players to take risks. Destiny is a big part of the game, and the system encourages you as a player to grasp opportunities rather than letting them passively pass you by. You are a samurai after all, and you're duty-bound to take action in the name of your lord and your clan, and the roll and keep system allows you a better chance of having those risks, if you take them, pay off for greater rewards. It all starts with a dice pool. And every dice pool contains two numbers. One of them is the trait that we mentioned earlier, and the second can be any number of different things. A skill, or the base damage of your weapon, or a spell. Your GM will help you determine what your dice pool is in any given situation. Let's say you're trying to strike a bandit that's attacking your peasantry. Yes, your peasantry. You're not going to have that. They're not going to steal your rice and grain and lands. You're going to take a look at your sheet and see what the number is that you need to actually strike with. Let's say you're trying to attack that bandit with your katana, and your katana skill is a 4. The GM would tell you that your katana in this instance is paired with your agility, which for this example we'll say is 3. So between the 3 and the 4, it totals to a dice pool of 7, which is what you will roll. L5R uses exclusively 10-sided dice, or D10s for short. And remember, the system is called roll and keep, not roll and keep everything, so you won't be able to keep every single die that you're going to be rolling for the result of your roll. In fact, the number of dice that you can keep is equal to the trait that makes up that dice pool. So in the above example, we had four dice for our katana skill and 3 dice for our trait. So we're rolling 7 dice, but we're only going to be able to keep 3 of them. The shorthand for this is 7K3, or roll 7 dice, keeping 3 of them, and that's basically what a storyteller would say. You're going to roll 6K2 or 4K5 or whatever you would say. The numbers you roll on each of those individual dice are then summed and compared to a target number given to you by the GM. Usually this ranges from 10 for a very simple skill all the way up to 50 for a legendary one. But what about grasping for this greatness thing that I talked about earlier? Doesn't sound like the roll and keep system allows us to do that at all. Well, that's because we haven't mentioned the system or the mechanic called raises. And what raises are is essentially a bet that you're making with the GM. The typical process for a roll is the GM will tell you the target number of what that you need to roll. Then you, as a player, will tell your GM, you know what? I don't think I can just attack that bandit and strike him down. I think I can take off his arm, or take off his head, or just do it in a suitably more glorious and interesting fashion. And what this does is you're making that bet with the GM, and they will say, okay, you're going to need X number of raises to do that thing. Either have increased damage, or instead of actually killing the bandit, perhaps just disarming them and knocking their weapon out of their hand without hurting them. The GM will tell you the number of raises that are required, and each of these raises will increase the TN that you need to actually hit with your roll by 5. You would then, once this is established, make your roll, and if you do meet or exceed the new TN, then you succeed at the roll. If you don't meet this new TN, though, it doesn't matter whether you beat the old one. Doesn't matter whether you hit the TN that was required to kill the bandit when you were trying to disarm them. You fail the roll entirely. That's the risk that you took. That's a risk that you took, and unfortunately, you failed accordingly. So, why raise it all? Well, like I said, if you succeed, something better happens. This can be, like as I said earlier, extra damage, disarming an opponent, but it's not just related to combat. Again, this is a samurai drama story, so you could be speaking in a court, you could be speaking to a lord, you could be having a game of chance, or trying to insult someone without them quite realizing that you're insulting them in court. These raises allow you to change the story in a more interesting way and get a result that you wouldn't normally be able to do within mechanics. There's a dozen different ways, set ways, that you can, and bonuses that you can get from raises, but we're not going to go into that. And all you really need to know is that the raises allow you to be more cool, but if you want to be cooler, you have to take that risk. So those are the basics. But there's one thing that I touched on earlier that we haven't gone back to yet, and that's Void. Remember I said that Void, or the Void Ring, doesn't actually give you any associated traits, so what the hell's the point of it? Well, you have a pool of points that are similar to what you would have in other games, like hero points or drama points or fate points in other systems. And you get a number of points each session equal to your Void Ring. So while it's harder and more expensive to raise that ring, you're getting an immediate benefit of more of these points. And these points have a number of different set game benefits, the most common one being if you spend a single Void point before making a roll, you get an additional 1, keep 1, or you get to roll 1 more die and keep that additional die for your roll. They also power special abilities, make you move faster, that sort of thing, and these can be replenished in one of 2 ways. In between sessions, you get your full allotment of Void points back, and on top of that, if you take a full night's rest, depending on the situation, your GM may let you have them back. And also, if you roleplay in a particularly dramatic fashion, do something cool, make the table laugh, that sort of thing, GM might give you Void points there as well. The last dice mechanic I want to go into is called Exploding Dice, or Blessings of the Fortunes, depending on your group and how you choose to play it. When you make a roll, and you end up rolling a result of a 10 or a 0, depending on the dice that you're using, that counts as an exploding die. And what this means is you still keep that 10, but you then get to take that die, and indeed every die that ends up rolling is 0, if you're lucky enough to get multiples, and re-roll it. The result of that second roll is then added to the previous one. So let's say you rolled a 10 and pick up that die, roll again, and get a 4. So that die's total is considered to be a 14 rather than a 10. And the total for the whole roll encompasses all of that. So let's say you got a 10 and a 6 and a 4, and you re-rolled again, that exploding die and got another 4. Your total would be 24, and for your result. And what's cool about this is your exploding die roll can explode again. You can, in fact, continue to roll 10s if you're lucky enough, and get one exploding die after other exploding die, and laugh there maniacally cackling while your GM cries in a corner because you've just ruined his story in a big story moment. So, now that the unique mechanics are done, let's move on to combat. Some of the really cool, some of the best, most iconic moments from your favorite samurai movies or novels. L5R, again, has a number of interesting ways that it goes about it that fit with the theme. The difference between L5R and most other systems, again, you roll dice, compare them to numbers, you roll damage and that sort of thing, is that combat in L5R is fast and brutal, and you, as a samurai, as cool as you are all too mortal. And quite often, only 1 or 2 strikes will be needed for you to die. And there are no death saves in this game. To start combat, like most role-playing games, you roll initiative. So we need a rolling keep for that. And in this instance, it's your reflexes trait, and the static number we're adding to it is something called insight rank, which we won't go into, but what it translates to is your character level. And the number usually ranges from 1 to 5. So you're going to add both of those together, and as I said before, you keep your trait. So initiative, let's say for a level 1 character who has reflexes 3, would be 4, keep 3, or 3 reflexes plus 1 insight rank, rolling 4, keeping your reflexes of 3. That total is going to be your initiative score, and that's compared between every player and every NPC, and we go down from highest to lowest, like most RPGs, to determine who gets to act first in a round. Each round, every player gets to take 1 turn, and those consist of 2 different options. Either 2 simple actions and a number of free actions, or 1 complex action and a number of free actions. An example of a simple action would be to draw your sword, or moving a standard distance, which is about 30 feet, or if you're a fairly fast character, 40 feet. An example of a complex action is an attack. And yes, that might seem like it sucks to only be able to attack once per round, but in this game, 1 attack is most of the time really all you need. There are a number of different actions that range between movement and standard and complex actions, and they're all laid out in the book for you. But the distance that you can move in any given turn is based on what actions you take, and there's so many variations that we're not going to go into them all here. But it's fairly straightforward system once you actually get some practice in on it. You're about to take your turn. Before you say or declare what you're about to do, you fall into a stance, and this is again one of the main themes of the game. Before you actually roll your dice, you need to take a stance, and one guess how many stances there are. Yeah, 5. 1 for each of the major elements. The water stance, being where you derive your strength from, is the stance that you would take for a basic attack. Whereas if you wanted to actually attack opponent a little more aggressively, you can do the fire stance, which will allow you the full attack, which allows you to do more damage, but at the risk of being hurt more easily. Air is the stance for defense. Again, mercurial, fluid, easy to move around, whereas the earth stance is full defense. You don't actually get to attack in this stance, but you get a large number of defensive bonuses by just standing your ground. So we have full attack, full defense, standard defense. What's void? Well, like most things in this system, void is just special. It doesn't actually give you any actions in the immediate, but it gives you a bonus to actions the next round. So if you were to take a void stance, it means you're standing still, looking impressive, waiting for your opportunity to take action. And usually that results in bonus dice being rolled and kept. Or if you're standing in the middle of a large field, samurai fighting all around you, you're waiting for that single, precise, opportune moment to do a single draw of your sword and take down the enemy general. Again, void stance is used for that. When a character makes attacks, let's presume that they're using their sword from the previous example and trying to strike that bandit. As we said, you would take your kenjutsu roll or your katana roll and add it to your agility. In this case, 7, keep 3, like we were talking about before. And let's say they hit, and you would then roll damage. Each weapon has a base damage to it, whether it's a Yari spear or a katana or a nunchuck or whatever you want to use. Your static number is that base damage, and it's a set number of rolled and kept dice. To this set damage, in this case we'll use again a katana for example, which has a set damage of 2k2. You would add your strength. In this case we'll say 4. So the total for your damage roll would be 6k2, and while it doesn't sound like much, rolling 6 or 7 dice and keeping 2 of them gives you an average damage of between 12 to 20 damage, and your typical human only has 22 health. So yeah, doesn't take much. So that's roll and keep, rings, combat, all your basic great systems. But there are a number of other things that are in the game. Resolving duels, calling upon the spirits to cast spells, and how a character would gain or lose honor. There is so much to this game, but we only have so much time to put into this tutorial. So if you want to learn more, be sure to tune in to our upcoming L5R long game stream, which will be linked here, ideally, or more likely down in the description. Or if you're watching it at a later date, go to our long game playlist. But for now, I've been Devin, co-GM of D20 Live, and remember, honor is stronger than steel.